I'm Laura Ferguson, I'm the Director of the Campaign to End Loneliness, and we're here today with over 100 organisations, and the purpose of today is to celebrate all of the fantastic things that are happening to tackle loneliness in older age, and they're sharing with other local authorities, other health and wellbeing boards, other organisations who are out there tackling loneliness, exactly how they're doing it. Today has started with some discussion around policy with the Minister for Care Services, and at the moment people are in workshops discussing how to measure the costs of loneliness.
I'm Tracy Robbins, I work for the Joseph Rowntree Foundation and the Housing Trust. We've been running a 3-year action research project looking at neighbourhood approaches to loneliness. So that's training up local people to identify the causes of loneliness in 4 different neighbourhoods, and then them doing something about it in their neighbourhoods. We've been talking about loneliness of anybody of any age, because that's of course what I'm interested in, and how we should prepare for an ageing society.
My name's Chris Gage, I'm a Director of Ladder to the Main, and our work is to improve the quality of care services by using creativity to develop staff to shift the culture of care. And what we're doing to end loneliness is by unfreezing the often quite stuck cultures and relationships inside of care and enabling people to have fun, to enjoy themselves, to build new relationships, new possibilities, new ways of connecting that improve people's quality of life.
My name's Dave, I'm from Toynbee Hall, which is based out in the East End of London. I've got a number of older people services that I manage in Tower Hamlets and also the City of London. Social isolation and loneliness is something that I'm quite interested in, and today hearing the real difference between what is maybe more quantifiable of social isolation than it is to be loneliness, which is more subjective and more of a challenge to understand.
The discussion in the workshop was basically looking at the research that currently exists on the costs of loneliness. Because people are lonely, they make more visits to their GP, they may end up being in hospital for longer, they may go into residential care earlier. So it was looking at those sorts of issues, what we know about the topic, and then moving on, looking at what sort of tools and approaches the commissioners of health and public care services might use to assess those costs.
Information friendship advice. And we're offering that across the board because of the stigma. Okay, we think if we call ourselves a befriending helpline, a lot of people will be put off. We are a 24-hour service, we get a lot of calls through the night, and we're free to the caller.
The other thing, just as by way of introduction also, is to just sort of stress that I understand why it is so important to end loneliness. And I've made the point before, I got into a bit of trouble for saying it, but we can sometimes be a bit of a neglectful society because, as families disperse around the country, which is often simply the case these days, sometimes we find people living on their own and actually not having any contact with the outside world. So what can the government do? Well, we're taking the Care Bill through Parliament, first of all, which is it's the biggest reform of the legislation about care for 60 years. Yeah. And I think there's quite a broad consensus that it's a very good thing. Yeah. And central to the bill, which is the critical thing, is well-being.
So Open Space is a process that allows members of the audience on the day of the conference to put up for discussion any topic that they think should be on the agenda, and then to host a conversation with anyone in the room who's interested in that topic. So how this works is, essentially, we put up these sheets which were blank a few minutes ago, which is the agenda for round 1, and this sheet here, which was blank a few minutes ago, was the agenda for round 2. And then anybody in the room who wanted to have a conversation about a topic simply put their name on a post-it note like that, put a topic on their post-it note, and came up here, stuck it to the sheet, gave us a clue with one of these letters where in the space they were going to sit, and probably said a few words into the microphone about what their conversation was going to be about. So if you link age into that and what difficulties do older people face, you're giving them something that meets their civic curriculum. You're educating the kids up front, and it's not a huge cost.
Any approach would need to be really kind of tailored to rural kind of spirit and the rural culture.
Very active creativity is important in itself. So I think rather than going through professional networks, we really need to find creative things. Even gardening is very creative.
New perceptions of old age, and as we celebrate it more maybe, do you think that will change how people access services?
We could then welcome them and we would then know who's lonely and who's not. But that's the time you have.
I'm from the Department of Health, and I was part of a panel discussion where we were talking about what role can the department play in actually pushing this agenda forward. And we had a very good discussion between ourselves and Public Health England about how we can actually provide some really good tools so that local areas can unlock the potential that exists in their own communities to tackle this issue. Because councils can't do this alone. Government can't do this alone. This is about individuals, society, families and communities coming together to actually do some low-level, at times, interventions, but those that work to actually tackle loneliness.
Today we've had this extraordinary, lively day, very different kind of format for a conference to the one that many of us are used to. And we've had a really interesting variety of contributions. For me, the issue is about where do we go from here? Communities are all important, bringing people together, but we have our own responsibilities. So it's individuals, communities, local government, national government. We're all players in that. And for me, the test of how we go forward is whether the health and well-being boards bring those partnerships together.